Well, that might explain a thing or two.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Auto Anatomy. My name is Sean. I feel like every video that I've done lately has been, well, I wasn't really planning on making this video, but I legitimately was not planning on making this video. If you follow us on social media, you've seen that I've posted about getting a knock in the flooded Corvair engine, and I had a few people look at it, and we've got a bunch of different opinions on what it is, but I think at the end of the day, what matters most is that the knock is something that I can't diagnose from the top of the car. So I think the engine has to come out of it, and honestly, it probably has to come apart. And while there's a part of me that's kind of upset about having to go through the engine again, I'm also kind of excited because there's some things that are wrong with a flooded Corvair that I get the opportunity to fix. One, the transmission has never been rebuilt. It's a little notchy when shifting. Two, the differential screams going down the road, so the bearings are shot in it, it needs to be rebuilt. Three, the clutch the pressure plate and the flywheel were never resurfaced, never balanced, and it's got a little bit of a clutch shudder, so it gives me the opportunity to replace that. But if you haven't heard the noise, let me fire it up for the last time so you can get an idea of what it's doing. All right, we're going to fire up the Corvair, and I'm going to put the microphone down where I think it's making the most noise, so hopefully you can hear this. Well, I think this is pretty definitive. I don't know if you're going to be able to see. There's a lot of glitter in this pan. And look at the drain plug. I don't even know what this is. But I think that is probably not supposed to be there. Looking through the filter, it's honestly not as bad as I was expecting. There's a little bit of metal kind of right on the periphery of the filter, but really all in all, it's not that bad, which is kind of surprising and a little concerning. In order to pull the engine, I've actually got to pull off the fancy finned aluminum oil pan and put on a stock oil pan, because when I built the cradle to drop the engine, I built it around the stock oil pan, and honestly I just have not had enough motivation to go ahead and change it. So we're going to pull the fancy oil pan, put on a stocker back on it, and then that way I can go ahead and pull the engine out. But based on what I'm seeing, what's coming out of the oil, I think what's down in the oil pan may be pretty revealing. With the oil pan on the bench here, looking through, there's a lot of sludge down in there that looks almost organic material, but there's also, let's see if you can see, big piece of bright kind of coppery looking things, and then this is a piece of metal. I don't even know what that is, but it's round and sharp and solid, so there's something going on inside the engine. Yeah, let's keep taking this thing apart. With the powertrain out of the car, I think the next step is I want to pull the differential and transmission, because quite a few people were commenting that maybe it was the flywheel, and on the engine build previously we had bolted it, but I'm curious to see what it looks like. Looks like there is a lot of clutch disc wear, kind of way more than I was expecting. But we'll get the flywheel off and see what it looks like. Well, I think it's fair to say that the rear main seal was leaking, even though it was a brand new seal. So yeah, it probably didn't help the clutch. Well, here's going to be our first look into the bottom end. So I've got all the nuts off. Let's see what lies beneath. Okay. Well, so far I don't see anything obvious. I don't see any broken rods. I don't see anything major, but I mean, I really wouldn't expect to, just given the noises that it was making. I think we're gonna have to take it further down. We'll start popping the there's a little bit of side play. We'll just have to start popping things apart, see what shakes out. So I'm pretty desperate to see what the bearings look like, so we're just going to pop off some of these rod caps here and see what it looks like. Oh man, these look terrible. All right, let me pull out the bearing shell from the other side of the rod, and we'll go take it over to the bench and take a look at it. All right, so I got one of the rods off of it, and you can see, hopefully this translates, there's a decent number of grooves on the cap side, but on the rod side, it is worn all the way through into the bronze there. It's smoother on the rod side than it is the cap side, but something has definitely gone through here. Some trash, something has gone through the oil, which is unfortunate, which means that probably the crank is shot. But let's get the remainder of these rod caps off and pull some pistons out, and then we'll split the case. Take a look. Number 6, yeah, number 6. Kind of the same thing, lots of grooves in the bearing. Let's pop this piston out. Holy cow, this thing is torched. Man, you can feel the ridges in this bearing. This is number 5. So surprisingly, the crank, at least so far, doesn't look terrible. Well, it's got some ridges in it. This is the number 5 that I just pulled out. Yeah, it's got some ridges in it. And number 2 up here does as well. So let me just keep pulling this thing apart. All right, so the engine's torn apart, and doing a little diagnosis here, a little autopsy, if you will. Think I've found a couple of things here. So far, cam looks good, pistons look good, rings look good, rod bearings are totally shot. Main bearings are okay, but they can definitely tell they've had a lot of trash go through them. So there are two bypass valves in the Corvair engine. This one is to bypass the oil cooler. I guess that one's for like warm up and if it's cold, whatnot. And this one bypasses the oil filter. So if the pressure gets too high, then, you know, I guess it bypasses around the oil filter to maybe prevent damage to the oil filter itself. But in talking to my buddy Billy at Chair City Corvairs, which, by the way, if you need anything done for your Corvair, definitely check them out. They are a great group of people. He said to take a look at these two valves, and it may be a little hard to see. So let me see if I can get a little bit more light on it here. This is the oil filter bypass, and there's a little flat disc in there, and that little flat disc is actually cocked sideways just a little bit. And then this is the oil cooler bypass. And again, can't really see it very clearly, but it's also cocked just a little bit. So that tells me that the oil was probably not going through the oil filter, which kind of jives with, you know, when we cut the oil filter open, everything looked pretty clean. I mean, there was oil in it, but it wasn't, the filter itself wasn't dirty. I mean, it looked pretty new, honestly, just like it had some oil in it.
So here is the oil filter bypass valve, and I want to apologize because I'm getting over laryngitis. And all this is a pressure differential valve. So when oil comes in and the pressure differential between the filtered oil and the unfiltered oil is greater than, I think, 10 psi, this will open up, allowing oil to get past the oil filter. And the thought is that it's better to have unfiltered oil go to the main bearings and you know, not starve the engine. But the problem is if this stays cocked open, not all of your oil gets filtered. And I think that's what's happened here. So you can see this is just a pretty simple little flat disc and a washer. And over the course of, I don't know, 50 years, it failed. So I think this is the cause of all of our problems.
So now I know. These little $11 valves from Clark's can absolutely ruin your motor if they fail. So if you're out there looking to build a motor for your Corvair, take the time, spend the 20 bucks, replace both of them.
I didn't lock this one down tight enough. All right, let's try this again.
So looking at the specs for the block, so for journal 1, 2, and 3, the spec is 1.200 plus or minus 15 thou. Yeah, that one's not. That one's not. That one is, and that one is. So regardless of anything else, journal 1 and 2 are out of spec. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because on this block, you see I've already pulled the studs out for a reason. There are so many grooves down in the cam journals that make this block junk. So let's pop this block apart and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So on the Corvair engine, here are the cam journals and they are just machined into the bare aluminum. And regardless of diameter, even if this thing checked out perfectly, there are a lot of grooves and hot spots down into the in the journals themselves, which would basically render this thing unusable anyway. So I've ended up with a junk block, so now I've got to go find another one. But I think I've got an idea of what I'd like to do with this one. I think I'd like to try and turn it into a coffee table, and we're gonna do our best to make it to the Corvair Nationals in 2026 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I think that'd be a fun thing to build. We'll show you the build right here on the channel and then give it away as a raffle item. So if this is something that you'd be interested in seeing, drop a comment below and let me know.
So we know the block is junk, and the crank is it could probably be turned and saved, so it's not going to get thrown away, but it's certainly not going back in the engine. So now that we've done a deep autopsy into the flooded Corvair engine, it's time to start building back better. And I'm going to give you a tiny little sneak preview of what's to come. But that's all you're going to see for right now. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. God bless, and we will see you very soon.